hold your breath. We're not turning back.
The knee treble into the chest. Yeah, right to the fucking nose.
Hey guys, so we're back for another video today, and we are very fortunate to be joined by Dr. Jordan Shallows, the muscle doc on Instagram. I'll put the tag here and the link in my description. He's going to take us through a leg day today. I don't really know what to expect, but I'm sure it'll be good.
Okay, rather than rocking back and forth, put your other foot in front of your knee, lift the back foot up, now flex your hamstring, and then lower your torso down. Like flex your hamstring, like kick yourself in the butt. Keep going.
Yeah.
And then flex your quad as hard as you can. And then go back and forth like that. And then when you want to move it down a bit and then keep it there.
Yeah.
So like rather than just like going like back and forth, stick on a spot, flex, extend, flex, extend. So you forget about the back foot. Right? So like starch that up. Because the second this is such a bodybuilder thing, like
Yeah.
the second it's out of our sight, we don't think about it.
Yeah.
Right? This is why for the longest time, like most people have a hard time with back development. You never, when you first start training, have a problem with bicep development. It's like, there it is. And like, we're pretty like visual creatures. So if something's out of sight, it's out of mind, literally. And you see that, because this goes from a leg extension to a spine flexion thing. So you should try and keep like rib cage stacked over pelvis, but stay active in the hip extension, and then see how you do. Like, see how shaky you get?
Yeah.
This is good, like, it's what we expect. Drive the heel to the ceiling. See how much movement you have in the spine?
Yeah.
So like, grab the end of that sled there, and use like your hands as a support, and then use this to just stabilize.
Yeah.
And just see where you feel a stretch. So like bend the knee. Where do you feel a stretch on the right leg?
There.
Is it, hold on, so it's kind of down in the hamstring?
Yeah.
Okay, hold there for a second, just hold there. Because like the biggest issue with like bodybuilding training is you have a really hard time displacing your center of mass backwards, which means like you're always like on your toes, you're always compressed, you're always forward. Slip the up on the toe. Okay. Now slight bend in the knee. Bend the knee. Okay, now turn this down. Good, bring this up. Where do you feel it now? Higher in the hip, like in the glute at all?
I feel a little bit on the outside of my glute, but in terms of the hamstring,
what
I
I
feel
want you
more
to do
down.
is do like 10 reps of just basically like being here, up, through, flex the quad, and then back down, and try and just like oscillate here. But extend this.
As I'm moving now, I feel more in my glute.
It'll centralize. So extend this, flex the glute, turn this down. Good.
Yeah,
and then give me 10 reps there. Good. So I like how you're pushing yourself back. So push this back. So bend this knee, push your torso back. Yeah. So the idea is like displacing the center of mass posteriorly. Every bodybuilder like walks, and by no fault of their own, they're just very like, they're putting their center of mass forward. They're very like compressed in the back. You need to learn to like open up.
Yeah.
And be able to sink into like the midfoot more. You're always in your toes. So here at the back, and then as you come through, flex the quad hard. There you go. Good. And now rock back. Here. Good. Good. So flex the quad and then relax. Drive that hip. Okay. Come back. Bring this up. Flex that there, but turn this down.
Yeah.
No, this down. There. So you feel more of a stretch as you turn your pelvis away from it. Good. As you come through and you flex this quad, keep going, flex that quad. Now push up into my hand here. There you go. So you like tuck your pelvis underneath. And then rock back. Good. Flex here. Good. Does any side feel different?
Yeah, I feel a lot more in the glute here.
Okay, and less on the right side. And the right side is quad and hamstring issue?
Yeah.
Just think, every time you're doing a hinging movement, your body's relying on something other than its muscle to
Yeah.
stabilize itself. Because you don't have all of this reference point to lean into when you do like an RDL. When you do a deadlift, you deadlift how many plates?
6.5.
Man, something's supporting it other than your muscle, right? Your lats are probably playing like a really big role in stabilizing your pelvis and spine. But like, imagine if you did a hinge, it wasn't all going lat, 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 lat.
Yeah.
Some of it's going into the hamstring, right? So you can get the glute to stabilize the lateral hip and pelvis, you're in a good spot. So what I want to do is like, let's just do rounds of this. Like, let's start doing lunges, body weight there and back, in between. But I want you to kind of feel like, as you sink in, lunges are, everyone looks at lunges as like sagittal plane movements, like flexion extension. Sure, it's part of that, but it's really more of like a frontal plane movement. So as you lunge, like feel how, as you sink down, you're sinking into that hip that we just sort of prime. Like you're so sagittally plane dominant that your lunges want to be in the hamstring. You want to use your hamstring to extend the hip rather than your glute. You want to use your hamstring rather than extend the knee. You want to just go all hip extension because you can't move the pelvis through the frontal plane, right? So think about, all right, we just sort of isolated purely just this movement. Now integrate that into lunging. So just lunge there and back. Like, don't even think about it. Let your body organize the way it wants to now that you have that feeling in mind. Lengthen the stride just a bit. And let the chest drop with the angle of the shin. Right? You're keeping your chest up, so your torso's like this, but your shin's like that. In order to have our center of mass work efficiently, those two angles should be the same. So don't be afraid to lean forward, but keep your heel on the ground. There you go. And let the torso drop. Because when you keep your chest up is when your legs get real shaky. There you go. And don't step wide. Like, it's not a sobriety test or anything, but like you're kind of purposefully stepping a little bit too wide. That'll just bias the adductor to extend the hip. You want the quad to extend the knee, then the glute to extend the hip. This shows a crazy, so your adductors, obviously they adduct the hip, right? But they also are secondary stabilizers of the pelvis, which is like your primary pelvic stabilizer is your core, like rectus, transverse, internal, external oblique. But like your adductors are there to like stabilize the pelvis. So when something's going on, because that's really like, what the fuck? And again, you could probably gym pin it with 4 plates on the adductor machine. Strength and stability are 2 different things, right? They start from 2 different places. Stability starts from the actual muscle itself, telling the brain it needs, or telling the spinal cord it needs to contract. Where like you sit on the adductor, you have a motor program, a motor pattern that goes adduct, hip, deploy. So if you're strong, you're fucking dog shit stable. So go again. Now I want you to drop down, just like we had, but keep this up. Basically, you're creating what's called rotation around a fixed femur. Drop your chest down. Drop your chest down. Okay. Now close this. Find a stretch here. Then, so your stretch should kind of be from like that trochanter into the back of the pelvis. So here, use this stretch to contract and no. So you want to lead here. So shorten this to start to open this pelvis up. So start to face the wall. And you're contracting here, contracting here, you're contracting here. Then you find the stretch on the inside of the leg. Try and push it a little bit while shortening here. Good, hold. And now close down. Keep this up. There you go. Ribs down. And find that stretch. So you're driving into that lateral hip. You're really trying to find that stretch through here. And we use that stretch, shorten, contract, open up towards me. Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. Try and find that stretch in the adductor. Good. So do a couple more reps and then switch it on to the other side. And I'm going to do a set of lunges. How did that feel?
Hard.
Which is like, do you know anything about computers? Okay, great. So like, do you remember the first computer you ever had? What was it?
A really old.
Right? Well, it wasn't at the time.
Dell.
So I always think of like, what we just did is like, you're trying to, if that's hard, this is like basic 1s and 0s of movement. You're just creating rotation on a fixed femur. So you're trying to execute 6, 7, 8 plate hacks, but you don't have the 1s and 0s to run minesweeper flags. And these injuries just become like a blue screen of death. Because you're like, well, yeah, you're running too complex a program on too weak an operating system. You literally don't have the bandwidth. We get away with it because we slap on knee wraps and reverse bands and knee sleeves and all the stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like your best performance answer is that you can stabilize your joints internally. It's over. It's over. Thank you. Back again. So one thing I want you to try, like, did you get any pain in the knees with this?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll stick with it for now. Integrate your arms like you're actually an athlete. Opposite shoulder. Ah, Frankenstein, when's the last time you ran? Where does your shoulder go when your hip is flexed? There we go. Fucking unbelievable. So like the trick now is, like, this is like learning a skill. So there's a point where increased repetitions helps improve the skill.
Yeah.
But with increased repetitions comes, really right now it's like more of a mental fatigue than anything. Then once the mental fatigue kicks in, the skill will start to depreciate. So it's like, what's that interception point where we're practicing the peak amount of skill at good reps before the fatigue caused by practicing the skill physically starts to depreciate the execution of the skill.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, you know, maybe basically you're hitting technical failure, which is not something you ever hit because most of bodybuilders' workouts are all on machine. It only allows for pure muscular failure. But if you want to break through plateaus, you know, build really like new tissue, it starts, like, it's a neurological thing, right? Where so much of, we look at bodybuilding training, kind of like we talked about with the lat, where it's like, hey, what if we organize this exercise first? We actually use like this principle or theory of like neurological potentiation to actually do more damage. This is setting your brain on fire, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think of this fatiguing in a way where, like, did you have a dog as a kid?
Yeah.
What'd you have?
Rough collie.
A what?
Rough collie, lassie.
Oh, okay, yeah, perfect. So like smart dogs.
Yeah.
Right? So like the only way to make a dog like that tired is to make it think, right? That's why like border collies and stuff, like they're always doing tricks and running around, and like the owner will be like 4 miles away and fucking thing comes running. That's you. But it's in the sense that a lot of bodybuilders, like when I look at like your programming, it's meant to make I don't even know, that would make like a fish tired, right? It's just a bunch of movement.
Yeah.
But it's not, there's no thinking involved, right? So you really got to push the envelope with how well adapted you are to that stimulus to move more to actually cause the stimulus worth adapting to.
Yeah.
Right? So you end up just doing junk volume. So now it's like, this is like, rather than having your collie run around the house throwing a tennis ball, this is hiding drugs around the house.
Yeah.
Now it's like starting to think. Now you're tired, you've done bodyweight lunges.
Yeah.
Right? So we're just gonna keep doing this, but I want you to just try and decrease. So let's try and do the next round without this. Right?
Yeah.
So see if you can get that same feeling in the hip that we needed that for.
Yeah.
On that, and just try and oscillate back and forth. Because the goal will be like, if one day you can get to a point where you're here, lunge, up, flex through, flex the quad, into single leg RDL, open, close, it's like, okay, now we can like go on a leg press. Where are you pushing from? Okay.
Yeah.
Now keep pushing, but like push into my hand wherever my hand goes. There. So when you're rotating and you're bringing this in the bottom, it's deliberate, right? You're just, not that, and you're not too bad because you're really controlled, but like I want you to think about creating like rib cage rotation. So you're thinking more peripherally like, hey, I'm bringing the point of my shoulder to my knee sort of thing, which is fine, but it's passively just happening.
Yeah.
Everything has to be deliberate because the more muscular control we can get between like serratus external oblique and opposite hip flexor, or like adductors, opposite adductors, the more stable that joint's going to be. The more stable the joint's going to be, the more output. Right? Stability equals
Yeah.
output. We know this internally as bodybuilders because it's like, why do we gravitate to leg press over back squats, right? Why do we do all these machines? It's like stability equals output.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, fuck, we're missing our own nervous system's ability to stabilize that joint. So as you're lunging, I want you to think, okay, like this is deliberate, right? So as you come down, it's, okay, but don't over rotate. So think your sternum and your sacrum are gonna stay in the same line.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just gonna be, so almost like so think, here's what sprinters use, and I want you to use this. So there's a sprint coach from Canada named Charlie Francis, trained Ben Johnson, like one of the best sprinters ever.
Yeah.
He used to get Ben Johnson to sprint on the lane line, not in between the lane lines. So we'd sprint here, and the goal is basically you bring the knee and the thumb to midline. Right? So you're gonna step, like it's not a sobriety test, like I said. You're gonna step however you feel comfortable, but you're gonna keep a consistent stance on either side.
Yeah.
And as you come down, what's gonna calibrate your rotation, because I don't want your thumb over here, because now you're twisting your spine for no reason. It's gonna be here, right? So as you get to the bottom, it's, right? I always think of like Atlas. Right? Atlas is like taking that knee with the world on his shoulders, or like the thinking man posture. Like it's, the rotation is purposeful. Yeah, but here's the other thing. Go to the bottom. Drive this back into my hand. There you go. All right?
Okay,
This
so
idea of like,
so if that's going forward with force, this is coming back with the same force.
dude, that's like, your body moves to this principle called mirrored asymmetry.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is like a Pat Davidson thing. So if this makes a cut, Pat, I'm shutting you off. But it's like, pitcher wants more external rotation, he internally rotates more here, right? If you want more internal rotation, you externally rotate more here. So it's not just bringing this across, it's pulling this back too.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's gonna help stabilize your rib cage. We'll do this one more, and then, because you lack hip internal rotation like crazy.
Yeah.
This will help build it more than any other stretch, because as you bring this over, you're pulling the pelvis around, you're creating more rotation.
Yeah.
So
I noticed that this side is worse. So, like I have this like crunch in here, always.
what do you mean? Like
So-
pain?
It can lead to pain. So if I lie flat on the ground,
Yeah.
and I bring my knee to my chest and go to straighten it out, the crunch is like popcorn.
That's SI joint.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
and
can
it's
start
from. So I used to play. Obviously played hockey. I used to be a drag flicker, and the motion for drag flicking is, so it's like step, step, cross, pick up the ball here,
Yeah.
and every session I do like 300 of those.
Sick.
So
What could possibly go wrong?
yeah, and it was always one side. So I noticed over years working with physios, it's like I've built up like this, like imbalance in my lower back.
All right, we'll organize. I think the move
It's
after
got
this-
better. Like obviously since stop playing, it's better. It's just I notice it like as I fatigue here, I'm like I notice when I'm coming, when it's on this side, it's a little bit more like
Yeah.
I have to work a little harder
We'll
to.
see if this
Yeah,
cue helps.
Yeah.
Like, control the rib cage.
well, because it'll tighten
Yeah.
everything for me here.
All right, I'm gonna. There you go. A lot of moving parts. Focus. That's it. That's perfect. Good shape. Come on, dial it in. That's it. Good, perfect. Good control. Slow drag with that toe forward. Flex that quad hard. That's it. There you go. There you go. That's it. Keep the torso forward. Drop the chest. Drop the chest. There you go. That's it. Fill them up. Come on. Sink into that midfoot. Good, clean. That's it. That's it. Bring it home. So a little bit longer stride. Let the chest drop, and the focus is going to be on getting that length in that quad, and just pull from that lengthened position. All right, you're pulling from your belly button. All right, just nice, gradual through the toe. Good, just float, man, just float. That's it, good. Deliberate with that arm swing. Serratus, oblique, drag. Good. It's solid though, man. Like seriously, that's a really good base to build.
That one felt, with doing that, I felt a lot less pressure in my lower spine.
You got such well-developed like obliques, right? That it's like use them, right? The trick is you never use them here.
Yeah.
Right? Like I always think bodybuilders, they end up in this position, that's fine. But I always think when I'm lifting, I'm basically preparing to get in a fight. What position do I want to be in when I'm fighting? Sure shit, not here. Right? I'm like, fucked up. This guy's got a glass chin. When you walk into a fight and the guy's like this, I'm like, oh fuck, like this is going to be a long day, right? So if like you find yourself lunging, everyone's like chest up, shoulder blades together, come on. Why? You're just throwing off your center.
So one thing I noticed when I lunge is after a while I usually get this like ache, lower back, but with like doing this, I felt like it was all in here.
Yeah, and that's what the core is for. And the best part is like a lot of bodybuilders will get worried about, especially in your division, like thick waist. And there's merit to that, dude. Like you should see my obliques. Like most people think, they're like, oh, he's got love handles. I'm like, no, like this is just from squatting a ton of weight. Like that's part of it. Like your rib cage size and shape dictates. So like if I do heavy rows, like my obliques get fucking big. Like people think that's a myth. It's not a myth. Like it's what they don't see is the underlying rib cage. Because you can have like a bikini chick whose rib cage is like this, right? Like my ribs and your ribs go straight across. So that sets the stage for my obliques to be fucking huge, right? But like you can tell some bikini chicks like, no, squats doesn't make your waist thick. And like, meanwhile, her ribs are just like facing each other. It's like, no shit. Because you're a goddamn pop can, right? I'm like smushed as fuck. So it's like, obviously this is gonna expand, right? So with you, it's like, how do we get oblique work in without making it heavily loaded, right? This will help you build a better vacuum. Because in order for you to use your obliques here, and the reason your back's not pumped is because you're not in this position. No shit, this is gonna be pumped, right? Your psoas is pulling your lumbar spine forward, and all your erectors and your transversospinalis muscle, all the little muscles that connect your vertebra from your vertebra are just like, oh my God, we don't want our spine to go at the front of our body. So they're all contracting, trying to keep your spine from just like shooting out the front of your body. Obviously that's like being a bit hyperbolic, but that's why you get such a pump, because those small muscles are just like, oh shit, what's the hip flexor doing? The hip flexor's like, come with me. It's Jesus. Where it's just like cool out the hip flexor, let the obliques do their thing as they're meant to do. Then you can actually stabilize the pelvis and put stimulus into the legs. Go downstairs?
Yeah. I swear I felt like I've done a whole session.
Jesus, what are you doing?
Huh?
Scale it back a bit, man. Because like, here's the thing. Well, okay, that's where you want your feet? I'm just fucking with you. So think of how we use that. So you play sport, right? Really easy. Change in direction starts with a foot, right? So if I'm changing direction and I'm lengthening this adductor, what's my foot doing? It's pronating. Right? So like when guys have inversion and eversion sprains in their ankles and they have a hard time moving through this plane of the foot, they end up with groin sprains. Right? So if our goal is like forceful adduction, I want you to think, so bring this foot right in here, and I want you to think posterior tilt of the pelvis, really tuck that underneath, stack the ribs. So like, think about roll. So no, not shoulder blades together, shoulder blades around. Right? And now as you open up, good. Now just press into the ball of your big foot, and it should start to come together. And even in there, when you get close, posteriorly tilt your pelvis a little bit more. So you can come up a little bit. Good there. Good. And then as you open up, I just want you to focus on keeping this contact. So it's like you're beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Because even when like people run, when they strike down, like a sprinter is trying to find basically that, the first met head of their foot, because that's what starts internal rotation. And as you internally rotate the hip, then we use the adductor to help extend.
I felt that really firing.
Yeah.
I don't usually feel it like that. Like,
so if you're ever doing an exercise that, like, this is kind of like a good rule. If you're ever doing an exercise that can't be fixed at the foot and you find yourself like lower body and you're having to fix the position of the knee or like trying to move the hip per se, it's like, just do a different exercise.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's a general rule. You're good because most good bodybuilders have an athletic background.
Yeah.
Where we can say, hey, this, and they have enough like spatial awareness. Oh, fuck. Like what you did on the single leg RDL, whereas like, hey, you're forgetting about your back leg. Like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. All right, drive it into extension.
Yeah.
Most people that takes a couple weeks
yeah.
to figure out. So hop on. I'm gonna drop this seat back a bit. I want you to grab here underneath. So don't lean back. Fish your hand through. There. Yeah, there you go. So when you breathe, you're gonna breathe through your nose into my hand.
This up as well.
Go down, up. Reach through. There you go. So you're still hinging a bit at the back, good. That's it. Now in through the nose, and I want you to breathe in between the shoulder blades. So on the eccentric, I want you to. Now do your legs usually shake like that? All right.
Yeah.
That could be from the ACL and the patella. It's just like that instability, but we'll work on that. Watch this here. Bring it down more. There. Good. So really try and, I mean, it's not like necessarily a stretch, but I want you to get that full range. Especially if it looks like some of that instability is coming from the patella. Drive toes up to the ceiling, right? These are on the whole time. There you go. Oh yeah, it's kind of tough to lean too far forward when it's this light, eh?
I do feel a lot of like engagement though by doing it.
No, get in. Good. Into the basement. That's it. Deep to the nose. So sit back a little bit. Try and wedge into that hip. That's good. So find that balance point between your upper body's weight and the weight on the quad extension and just stay wedged in there. That's it. Just pull with that quad. Don't let that hip rise out of the bottom. I want you white knuckle tight on the handles. Hip doesn't move. Extend. Yep. There you go. We're working. Come on. Down, 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 down. There. Yep. That's it. I want you to get real comfortable in that bottom position, maintaining that tension. Going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Yep. There. Just pull. That's it. Control every inch. Good. Big air, big air, big air, big air. Come on. There you go. You're working. Come on. Just find that starting position. Build that tension. Build that tension. Oh, just slow pull. Control. Toes up. Toes up. Toes up. Toes up. That's it. Come on. Finish. 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 Good. Back in. Show me something. Let's go. Toes up. Find that tension. Come on. Yep. 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 That's good. Come on. Back in. Back in. Build that tension. Build that tension. Toes up. Toes up. Pull. Yep. 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 That's good. Nice set.
Oh my God.
That's a set, man.
Makes it so much harder.
Fucking oath.
Let's go now. Come on. Come on. Up, up. Squeeze. Squeeze. Good.
Fuck, that sucks. Leg press?
Yeah.
This is the best leg session I've had in 2.5 years. No joke, man. I've been going through it with knee pain. And I think like having me trying to explain the way I think, but probably not the way I've been training,
Yeah.
has been like,
But you know, we're all guilty of that. It's
No,
like
no
when I
doubt.
work with clients and I train them, the stuff I do with them is like far more like detailed and intricate. I get in and I do the motion and I won't take my time to do the,
yeah.
like I always talk to people, I think some clients will send me video footage of their training. One sent me the other day, they sent me a set. And I was like, I was like, the tempo is all wrong, you need to bring it down much. And he wrote back, he was like, oh, it's just a warm-up set, I said, no, you warm up with the same intensity you're working. And as I wrote it, I was like, I don't fucking do that, do I? Yeah.
Drop the chin, breathe through the nose, and I want you to expand here. You got all this room for expansion. You're compressing here, expand here. Dude, you're just gonna create a ballast full of air where that thing's just gonna skyrocket up. Pop. Easy. Whole foot pressure. In through the nose, just fucking bury that thing as deep into your chest as you can. All right, you're safe here, you're safe. That's it. Fucking just move through that. Drive that knee out. Good. Expand that rib cage, reach, reach, reach. Turn them kind of and just really fucking just breathe into this, man. Just breathe into my hand. And let this stretch, let that stretch. That's it. That thing should just fire up. Second that knee hits your chest, it should just explode up. Yeah, look at the hams on the kid. Holy fuck, eh? How'd that feel?
Yeah, a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the handle. I thought about it for the first time. I'm like, wait, that's what we're trying to do, right? Like, that's meant to be the. Do you like deload in your sessions? Do you believe in that? No, I'm the same. But I think something like this, like even though we're working hard, it's still like it's still a deload.
Yeah.
There's not fucking 18 plates on here, but you're still catching a pump, right?
Yeah.
I think the worst habit that bodybuilders fall into, in my opinion, is like, I'm gonna go doing just a light session. So I usually do this for 80 plates aside. I'm only going to do it for 70 plates a side,
Yeah.
and that's my deload, or do it for 20 plates a side rather than 80 plates a side, whatever the fuck. Where it's like, man, there's so much. Like, I look at sessions like this, like practice.
There's certain exercises I'll only perform a top set because I don't see a point in a back off set. If I'm dropping the weight by 30%, I'm still only hitting the same reps as my top set.
Yeah.
To me, that doesn't make sense. So I'm like,
with
if that doesn't work, so that's when my training programming adapts to the output and what I'm capable of. So that's why I don't think I need. I don't think I ever overreach.
Yeah. No, I'm a fan of that, because I think it's good to have other metrics of progression.
Yeah.
That aren't resistance, because you're using that as like a subjective metric of progression.
Yeah.
Like, I've arrived to where I need to be.
Yeah.
Right. But something like a session like this is like, I look at this like there's so much, like just the rotation, like it's a qualitative thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is what bodybuilding is. It's
Well,
so
like the
qualitative.
work rate I had to put in just in those lunges
Yeah.
was evident. Like that was a lot for me.
Oh man, feels good. Better than the last set. There you go. Let the knee come into the chest. Don't drive the knee out. And drive through the midfoot. Oh, buddy. Fucking growing. Let's go. Reach, 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 reach. Let the knee travel into the chest. Yeah, right to the fucking nose. Nice. The end. What's that? Oh. Ooh, wow. Nice.
Fuck good.
How you feeling?
Yeah, good.
What do you reckon next set? You trying to go up?
Yeah, I could probably go a bit heavier.
Okay. I'll probably just throw 10s on, because this is more than I've done in a while. But if you want to jump another plate after, I got you.
Yeah. Have one here, have one, man. So you're keeping your chest sort of following your shin.
Yeah, just a good way to like
Yeah.
balance your center of mass. Now the trick is, when you have that sorted, is think of your foot like, let's say this is your big toe, and then this is your little toe. Like, make sure you calibrate for whole foot pressure, but find some of that internal rotation, because this is what bodybuilders, when they don't realize about training, like, some exercises are really good at helping with your posing. So you want to dissociate movement of your rib cage going this way while keeping your pelvis this way, right? Right, so like you should feel like a pretty gnarly stretch in here as you go down, right? Because you're internally rotating that hip and you're pushing more into that glute by just driving the pelvis to the side. And so I really want you to reach for the ground. Let the arm long. Right arm is long, long, long. That's it. Good. You should feel that kind of pull through the oblique. Yeah.
That feels really nice.
Yeah. And then, because like so much of bodybuilding, like posing is rotation.
Yeah.
Right? Like being able to leave like display on one end, like the lower body, while twisting the upper body, and they never do it. Right? Reach. That right, left hand should be like hovering over. That's it. Good. Let it pull you. Like we're using this to bias rotation. But think about the whole foot, right? Let that knee come in a bit. Right knee comes in a bit. That's it. Because we're finding that internal rotation. So like find that stretch. Like when we first started warming up and we were pushing into that glute in the single leg RDL and the hip airplane, try and find that stretch in the right glute. That's it. Left arm's long, reach. Actively protract, like punch towards the ground. That's it.
Yeah. So it's like when you're going down, that should feel like almost like you're kicking it
like
out.
Any unilateral lower body movement, for the purposes of like the way we're training, like not, our primary focus is setting the stage for future exercises like leg presses, like squats, like hack squats, to be on the track where they can challenge the muscle. So it's like we need to balance like this rotation at the hip before we can really worry about flexion extension of the hip and knee, right? Where the hamstring and the quad do. So it's like
feel really fired up from that.
Yeah, because it's
crazy.
Like really. So my point is, unilateral movements, as far as like we're concerned, because we're so sagittally plane dominant, should really be looked at as almost frontal plane movements, like side to side movements. It's almost as if like the rib cage manages like the transverse plane. So like you're trying to rotate the rib cage, right? You're trying to laterally flex the pelvis. So we got transverse plane, frontal plane, and then the hip joint actually goes through predominantly sagittal plane, right? But they all go through all of it. It's just if you had to focus, it's like, all right, rib cage, transverse plane rotation, pelvis, frontal plane lateral flexion, hip joint, sagittal plane flexion extension, right? Like, and it becomes like artful in the sense that you break those three parts of the triplanar model away and you just move. Right? But in the early stages, because we're so robotic, we're so locked down with everything we do, it's like, all right, well, let's play into that strength of being like, hey, we know what all of these things are in isolation because all we do is isolate. And let's use those isolation principles of like, hey, rib cage goes like this and rotate. Pelvis laterally flexes to kind of capture more internal rotation from the pelvis on the hip, and then hip joint flex and extends. Then over time, you'll just feel it, right? And that's what we talk about, where bodybuilding becomes an art over a science. 90% of people need just the science, but the 10% of guys the 1% of guys on stage, they seem to get away with not really worrying about the science. Whether it's intuitive or whether it's learned, the science gives way to the art, and they just know how to move, right?
Huh?
I'm gonna be so fucked tomorrow. Like when I say 2.5 years, I mean like legitimately.
I was like, after we did back last week, I got home and I was tired straight away. And then about an hour or so later, I was like, right, I need to get through check-ins. I started doing my check-ins, and about 10 minutes in, I was like, I was like, I can't do my check-ins. I was like, I can't hold my arms here because I kept getting cramps in my lats.
Be careful, I'm gonna stand next to you on stage.
But my lats just would.
Hey, Rudy, am I doing it?
Literally couldn't find a position where they didn't cramp.
Yeah.
I was like trying to hold my arms up here, holding. I was like, no.
Yeah, so purposely like reach, protract, like you're punching the ground. Like extend your tricep. You punch with a flexed elbow. There you go. That's it. Reach, reach, reach. Push the shoulder blade away from the rib cage. On. Thanks. Cheers. Thanks, Simon. There you go. Push your knees back at the bottom. Back, back. There you go. Now Michael Jackson at the top. I love how everyone knows. Everyone knows. Fucking unreal. Just consistently give way as you come up to the top. So try and go as far as you can on your toes, and then just let the knees start to slowly drift forward. Yeah, push the knees back, slightly bring the knees forward. Money. Super forward. Knees back, knees back, knees back. Good, find that stretch. Come up, a little bit. There, that's it.
Oh my God.
That's the one. Yeah, because think, right? Like the gastroc assists the hamstring in the first 15 degrees of knee flexion. It's like, well, we didn't evolve to move on hamstring curls. We evolved to walk. So what does that mean? It means as I'm here and I'm going through what's called toe off, I need to then gather in my opposite side stance phase and initiate swing phase. So I need to actually like begin to, as I plantar flex, right? So push my toe into the ground, I need to actually start flexing my knee. So it's like, let's use that principle of how our calf's meant to actually work as we walk around and be like, all right, well, let's not just keep our knees locked and come up like this. This is nothing. Let's actually use that gastroc at the knee to start to shorten the first 15 degrees. Right? So you notice the first couple of reps, he was pushing his knee too far forward. It's going way past that 15 degrees. He was actually underloading the gastroc and overloading the hamstring. Right? Then the hamstring was like, fuck, knee, come back, come back. It's finding that sweet spot where your knees are like extended. And as you come up, they drift into 15 degrees of flexion and then back down.
Yeah.
That's just real subtle. It's just like a drift. And they just drift forward, even less. And that's more like 20, 30 degrees. And push it back. Good, find that stretch. And you're always pushing through the ball of the first toe.
Calves are dead.
Hey?
The calves feel dead already.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I just think like upper extremity and lower extremity have so many similarities, right? Like if I was to punch someone, I wouldn't externally rotate my shoulder.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to exert force, I always internally rotate my shoulder, right? It's the same thing with like driving the knees out. It's like, why am I driving the knees out? That externally rotates the shoulder. Or that externally rotates the hip, sorry.
Yeah.
So it's like doing a leg press with the knees out is like trying to punch someone like this. It's the same thing, like stick with punching. Or like what do we say? Like when you're doing lunges, like we'll pretend like someone's gonna hit you. You're not gonna be like this is weak, right? This is strong. Same thing with like intent through the big toe on this. Like I think the big toe here, like the ball of the foot, like the knuckle, right? Like they call this a boxer's break, but this is a shitty boxer's break. This is where you don't know how to fight. You break these two mets, right?
Yeah.
When you know how to fight, you land here, right? So that's where the impact is. So it's like, all right, internal rotation causes, for the hip, it causes extension, right? It causes us to propel, right? So if I think of that same principle, it's like, well, if I'm trying to punch someone, I'm probably going to try and land here over here.
Yeah.
So if I'm, you know, internally rotated at the hips and I'm expressing that force into the ground, like I'd express from the shoulder, it's like, well, where do I want to connect? It's like, well, I want to connect here, right?
Yeah.
That sucks way more than this does. This hurts this hand.
Yeah.
This hurts this jaw, right? So it's like, if I think about that, it's like, well, I'm really focusing on right here, right? So then you just basically take like the global mechanical principles and then you try and isolate it, or you start to layer in the local mechanical principles of like, all right, it's a gas drop. Gas drop goes through 15 degrees of flexion. So as we're going through the big toe, we're going from knee extended to slightly knee forward.
Yeah.
And that's really all I'm thinking about. Fatigue is a neurological phenomenon where, like, or maybe even do this, like fatigue is more of a central nervous system phenomenon where being tired is more peripheral. So like central is spinal cord and brain.
Yeah.
Peripheral is nerves and, you know, synapses that are peripheral, right? That the depolarization at the actual muscle, or like troponins and sarcoplasmic reticulum and all that, the actual like causing muscle to contract. So it's like, yeah, we can have a lot of peripheral nervous system fatigue. I would just call that being tired.
Yeah.
Right? There's a huge metabolic component to being tired. There's a huge neurologic component, or like, let's say a bias. There's a huge neurological bias towards being fatigued. There's a huge metabolic bias. And maybe even huge is the wrong word if we're using the word bias. But like, I've fucking said this 7 times, but I think it matters. Where it's like central nervous system fatigue is more, like, obviously it's more like a neurologic thing that's fatigue driven, but when you peripheral nervous system, we'll look at it as fatigue. It's you're lacking the metabolic environment to keep turning over, right? Whereas if you lack the metabolic or the neurologic environment to turn over, that's a stimulus.
Yeah.
Right? Because so much of it is like tension based, which isn't necessarily metabolic. Not that there's a huge component of that, but if you can get it so you're standing at the end of a session that started with those lunges, and those lunges had, you know, 20, 30 kilos in each hand, you got some serious wheels on you then. Because that means everything is, you've done all you can to internally stabilize, then it's like, great, go fucking do whatever the fuck you want. Right? It's like, I look at it as like an exponent. Like a normal training session is an equation, and your ability to stabilize internally is the exponent to that equation, right? It exists outside of that session. And it's a multiplier that takes the entire cumulative effect of the session and elevates it.
Yeah.
Right?
All right, so that's the session wrapped up. And as expected, it was pretty damn tough for me. Totally new sort of training environment in terms of what we were focusing on, but it's just like opened my mind up to so much that I need to work on in terms of my stability and internal mobilization to sort of get the most out of my movements. It's all well and good moving 7-8 plates on a hack squat, but if it's not being done correctly, it's going to be pretty pointless, which you know, you'll see in the struggles in today's session for me. The first exercise in, just doing walking lunges, I was soaking with sweat. So thank you very much to Jordan, and let him say a few words about himself and maybe the session and what the kind of focus was.
Yeah, I think bodybuilders all present the same way. So you're all good at the same things, but you're all bad at the same things. Today was just like almost really more practice, right? Like starting to grain in better habits, better default ranges of motion, right? So that we did a lot of thinking today. And the goal is to make a lot of this be not mindless, but as like an expression of mindfulness when we're training. Right? It's not like some hippy dippy shit. It's like, oh, this is how your body's actually meant to move. I think a lot of bodybuilders seek a stimulus of resistance by trying to put their body in positions where they need to fight against their own body. It's like that's wrong. That's not what our body will adapt to. Our body will adapt to moving efficiently fast, moving efficiently heavy. Right, so today was really about recalibrating some of that movement efficiency. Then as we start to layer in weight in these new default ranges of motion, you're going to see some real adaptable stimulus come out of this. So, if you're a bodybuilder, highly suggest for the most part, taking a look at some of those warm-up exercises we did, just leaving like a better trail of breadcrumbs for that nervous system to follow when we get into ranges of motion or heavier loaded exercises, like a leg press, like a hamstring curl, like an adductor machine, right? You're trying to, it's learning, it's not training at a certain point. And then once the learning melds to training, the science melds to art, that's when you really start to make some serious progress.
Yeah, it makes total sense, and like a lot of things today clicked that he was saying to me about like what I was trying to do and where I was trying to focus on and stabilizing, and it just brought me back to all of the pointless injuries I've had recently have literally come from this sort of stuff, where I'm not stabilizing correctly and putting pressure on the wrong parts, and that's what's led to the injuries I've had. So this is something I certainly need to work on, and will be doing so moving forward. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you got as much from that session as I did, and be sure to like, subscribe, comment anything you want to see in the future. We will be coming with more videos weekly, and be sure to follow Jordan. As I said, his Instagram tag will be below and in the description.